There is nothing more symbolic of complete freedom than the air all around. It is found in abundance. It cannot be depleted, despite each human being consuming about 11,000 liters of air every day. Air does not need visas or passports to travel around the world. Despite air having complete power over our lives, which is illustrated by the fact that we cannot go even 5 minutes without inhaling air, it does not forcibly enter our lungs unless the act of breathing is initiated by the physical body. When we breathe, air freely and readily enters the lungs where oxygen molecules that are contained within it get trapped. It is the end of the journey for oxygen molecules which may perhaps have started the journey in a distant galaxy millions of light years away. The final parting gift is continuation of life in the body. On one hand, air is completely free in the atmosphere. On the other hand, it is easily trapped in the relatively minuscule air sacs of the lungs. Even several billion people holding the breath at the same time cannot put a dent in the oxygen stores of the atmosphere. Just as freedom to breathe is fundamental to the continuation of life in the body, the freedom to think may be considered as one of the foundations of our happiness. When there is a free flow of thought in the mind, new ideas can wash over old ones, just as stale dead air is expelled from the lungs, making way for fresh air to come in. Like the lungs, which have a finite and limited capacity to hold air, the conscious mind has a finite capacity to hold thoughts. Most of the space in the conscious mind is taken up by thoughts we don't want to get rid of. Such thoughts are linked to our habit patterns, whether it is an emotional habit such as anxiety and fear, or a physical habit such as addiction to food or drink. If we could flood the mind all at once with a fresh wave of thought with such force that the prevailing thoughts would get washed away, perhaps we could change our habits and mental conditioning in an instant. Just as we can only exert a certain amount of pressure on the air sacs of the lungs before they get damaged, the delicate architecture of the mind may get irreversibly disturbed by forcibly trying to change thought patterns. Rather than work within the limited confines of the conscious mind with its ingrained rules and regulations from years and years of conditioning, we could approach the mind from a freer space. That space is within all of us, and it manifests as the capacity to perceive without attachment to a certain thought or an idea. That perception, like the free air in the atmosphere, is available to all of us should we choose to let it wash over our conscious mind. That perceptive capacity cannot be depleted or contaminated no matter what is contained within our thoughts. Just as oxygen molecules get trapped once they enter the lungs, a part of our free perception gets entangled with the contents of our thoughts once we make a conscious choice to indulge in our thoughts. Like we seek places where the air is clean and unpolluted, we can seek refuge in that pure perception which is cleansed of any thought contamination. One way to try and achieve this is to watch and observe thoughts not from an imaginary space, but from silent gaps between thoughts. A conscious perception of silence is possible, even if it lasts for just a few seconds. Over time, pockets of silence may increase and will provide a ringside view of the mind from which we can watch the game of life play out. All the while, we're sourcing our happiness from another place. We may call this freedom without thought contamination.